I said in a previous video that the English muffins were the only recipe in the book that aren't baked. That was a lie, because these flatbreads are also griddled. Hey everyone, I'm Claire Saffitz. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today I have a very exciting recipe to show you from Dessert Person. I am making my soft and pillowy flatbread dough. There's a little bit of cooked potato in it, so it's a really interesting spin on sort of easy flatbread recipe. And then I use that dough to turn it into this feta stuffed flatbread with zaatar, and I make this incredibly delicious eggplant dip, and it's so, so good. I'm gonna use a stand mixer with the dough hook, mostly because I already had it out and it's here and I'm feeling a little lazy. But I would say most of the times I've made this, I've done it by hand. So you can do either one. Ingredients for just the flatbread dough. And it's really an all-purpose flatbread you can use to make wraps. You can use it for dip, a side dish, for any kind of saucy meal that you have. So this is just for the plain dough. So I have some all-purpose flour, active dry yeast, olive oil, kosher salt, and a potato. All right, so I'm gonna peel my potato, and I want about 8 ounces of uncooked potato after it's peeled. Potato in a recipe doesn't have to be just for potato bread. It really does contribute a great texture to all styles of dough. So I thought, why not put it in a flatbread dough where you want it to stay really soft and flexible and not get hard and crispy. All right, so this is gonna go in my small saucepan, and then just a little water to cover. Not a lot of water. So just barely covered it. I'm not salting it either. Set this over medium-high heat. This should take less than 10 minutes really at this point, but you want it to be completely tender. So we'll come back, and then when I drain it, I'm obviously gonna save the water. So while that's coming up, I will combine my other ingredients. So I have my flour. You could do this with bread flour, that would be fine. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of diamond kosher salt. If you're using Morton, use 1 teaspoon. So I just forked into a piece of potato, and it's very tender. There's very little resistance. And now the water that's left over in here that's filled with all of this potato starch, I'm going to save. This will be the water that I use to bring the dough together and to proof the yeast. I need about a cup. So this recipe uses a teaspoon of active dry yeast, which is not a lot. You don't really want it above 115 because then you risk killing some or all of the yeast. So it's helpful to have a thermometer here, but in general, if something feels lukewarm, like slightly warmer than body temp, then you're good. You're gonna measure out a 1/4 cup for the yeast. If you know that the yeast you're using is good, and maybe you're taking it from the same packet or jar where you've already made something and it was fine, you can skip this and just add the yeast directly to the flour mixture. So I'm starting to dissolve those little yeast granules in that warm water. The water has this potato starch for the yeast to start to feed on, so I should theoretically see some bubbling and everything of the yeast after a few minutes. I can add my oil to the remainder of my potato liquid. And then with my potato, I'm just going to mash this with a fork. I'm gonna add this to my bowl of flour. Oh, see, it just bloomed. Oh, woo, crazy looking, right? It loves that potato water. This is good to go. So I'm gonna add this. Now I'm gonna add the rest of the liquid and scrape in all that potato bits, everything. Okay, so now I can start to mix. I'm gonna start on low. I don't know how long I've been mixing, I lost track of time, but it looks good. It's pulling away from the sides. It is sticking a little bit to the bottom, but in general, it looks really smooth. It's like super elastic. Obviously, I let the mixer do all the work here. If I were to work this by hand, it would probably be a little bit soft. So you can add flour. So I didn't add any flour here, but if I were doing it in a bowl or on the work surface, I'm sure I would have added flour to make it a little more workable. It's okay, it is a really soft dough, so if you feel like your dough is a little bit sticky, that's normal. So I have my bowl scraper here, just a flexible piece of plastic that's really good for scraping down the sides of bowls, hence the name. So I'm gonna get this out onto the surface, get that bowl really clean. And now I wanna let it rise. I'm gonna put it back in the bowl, but first I'm gonna oil the bowl a little bit. It's pretty clean, so I'm not rinsing it out or anything. But go ahead and rub that around the bowl. And then I'm gonna use my bowl scraper to help me gather the dough into a circle. This is gonna go into the bowl. And now cover it. And this is gonna rise at room temperature until it's doubled in size. And that'll be, depending on how warm your water was and the temperature of the room, maybe 1 to 2 hours, call it an hour and a half. This dough I made last night, and you can see that I didn't let it rise at room temperature at all. I just put it right in the fridge. And because the dough was warm from the potato water and from the friction of the mixer, it rose and really did about double in size overnight. Now what I want to do is portion it out. So I'm going to divide this into 8 pieces because this recipe makes 8 pieces of flatbread. I'm not going to weigh it because I don't really care that much about each piece of flatbread being exactly the same size. First, I'm going to grab a sheet tray because I want a place to put the balls of dough, and then they're going to go through their second rise. This is a very olive oily recipe, and the olive oil gives this really soft dough this crisp exterior, so you get all these different textures, and you get that little charred, crispy part, and then the soft, pillowy inside. And it's just a matter of sort of tucking the edges underneath itself. You can kind of gather these irregular edges up toward the center and make like a little bundle. So sometimes I say it's like a teardrop shape or like a bulb of garlic. And then you want to flip it over so that the rounded side is up. And then you can go back in with your bowl scraper or bench scraper and tuck the dough underneath itself, and that is causing it to sit really high in this round sort of dome shape. And then that's it. So once you have something smooth and round, just transfer it to your prepared baking sheet. I like this because I can see through it and it doesn't touch the top of the dough, so these things are great. I'm gonna just let this sit at room temperature, so I'll move it right here. And while those are rising though, I'm going to make this incredibly delicious eggplant dip. It's sort of similar to like a baba ganoush or other kind of eggplant dips you might know, and it's really simple. The first step is to char your eggplant. I already did that step because it takes a little bit of time in my broiler and it would make things really hot in here. But here I have 2 like medium large globe eggplant, aka Italian eggplant. I use them because they have a high flesh to skin ratio, and that's what you want. So I just poked a couple holes, put them on a baking sheet, stuck them under my broiler, and turned them every so often until they were totally blackened and the flesh inside kind of collapses. If you were charring it and making this straight away, I would let the flesh itself drain after you scoop it, but these have had quite a while to drain. So I'm just cutting off the stem portion. You can see that the flesh really easily separates from the skin. And I don't bother to take off the seeds. The seeds just go right in. So you can see that the skin becomes like a shell and the flesh just naturally separates right off. The skin is garbage. This is 1 cup of labna, which is a strained yogurt. You can find it in Middle Eastern grocery stores. I love it because it's really rich and super tangy. You can just use plain Greek yogurt as a substitute if you don't have labna. Eggplant like plus creamy, that's a great combo. I want a 1/2 cup of chopped parsley leaves. These leaves I just picked last night. So this is gonna get buzzed, but just give it a little head start. I think the most important thing with any eggplant dip is that you season it really well, because eggplant has great flavor, but it takes a surprising amount of salt. Keep tasting it as you're making it and putting it together. And if you're just feeling like, wow, I put like a lot of lemon and garlic in, but it doesn't taste like a lot, just keep adding salt. Now to this, I'm going to grate in my garlic clove. So if you're making this ahead of time, maybe wait to add the garlic, because with raw garlic, the longer it sits, the more powerful it becomes. Then 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And in a fairly juicy lemon, that should be about 1/2. 2 teaspoons of kosher is the right amount. If you're using Morton, use 1/2, because again, it's basically twice as salty. Now, some ground cumin. It adds smokiness, some like earthiness, some spice. So the recipe calls for hot smoked paprika because I like the heat. Right now I just have regular sweet paprika. You can always add heat another way, like a couple dashes of hot sauce or some cayenne. Half a teaspoon. Oh, and then just olive oil. So a 1/4 cup of olive oil goes in. I'm a little nervous because I feel like this is a very full container, but usually I just go for it. It's fine. You could just do this by hand, and I would maybe have like chopped the parsley a bit finer. You can mash the eggplant. You'll just have something a little more coarse and not as smooth and silky. It almost looks like hummus, so it becomes really smooth. And it'll set up a little bit, but it's definitely dip consistency. I'm going to just plate this because we're gonna eat this shortly. So just put it into like a shallow bowl. You can top it with some extra parsley if you want. I might do that, a little olive oil. And then I give it a couple dashes of paprika on top. All right, so this is done. I'm gonna set this aside. My little dough balls look like they're in a good spot, so I'm ready to now shift gears and go on to stuffing and rolling the flatbreads and cooking them. So it's a really fun process, but it's a really visual one, so it's good to be able to show you what that looks like. I am stuffing the flatbread with feta. I have here 8 ounces of feta cheese that I crumbled. I would not recommend like the super hard, firm, pre-crumbled stuff from the grocery store. So I had a block and I just drained it and crumbled it. That's inside the flatbread. When the flatbread is cooking, I like to brush it with a zaatar oil, which I'm going to make. So zaatar is a Middle Eastern spice. It is the name of both a plant that grows an herb and a spice blend. So this zaatar is a combination of the herb plus sumac, plus sesame seeds, plus what else? Salt, I think? Sumac, sesame. Oh, and this has like a little olive oil in it. So you see like little flecks of red in there, that's the sumac. The green is the zaatar, and then of course the sesame seeds. So I'm going to combine 4 tablespoons of this zaatar. And I think it's easier to find now. It used to be something that was sort of a specialty item. I think it's a much more common spice blend these days. And I'm gonna add to that 4 tablespoons of olive oil. And this is enough for the 8 flatbreads. Unless you have a large griddle, same as with the English muffins, you can really only make 1 flatbread at a time. So in order to keep everything warm, like if you're making them for a crowd, what I recommend is taking a sheet tray with a wire rack in it, putting it in the oven, and turning your oven on the lowest setting. Like, so for me, that's 150. And this is just a warming area where I'll take the flatbread, I'll transfer it to the rack, and it will stay really warm in the oven until I'm ready to serve. With a sticky dough, you can either add flour or you can oil it. Go ahead and pat that down into something pretty thin and even. Now I'm gonna take 1 ounce of feta. I have 8 ounces total, so 1 ounce per portion. And that comes out to be about like 3 tablespoons crumbled. Sprinkle that across the surface of the dough. And now I'm going to roll it up, so like folding in the feta, like so. So I have this kind of cigar. And now I'm going to create a spiral or a snail shape. So starting from one end, twisting the dough onto itself. Now you can see it's like a little snail. And now this can actually go back on the baking sheet. This should relax a little bit before I roll it out. So I'm gonna pull out another piece, put this one inside, and do that again. So same thing, kind of flattening it out. So like the stuffing is kind of optional. If you want to make just zaatar flatbreads with the eggplant dip, go ahead and do that. You can skip this step. But I just love the way the feta adds a little tang and creaminess, and it's like little pockets of surprise when you go to bite in the flatbread. And so now that I have my cigar, I can kind of lift it up to make sure it's not sticking. And then starting at one end, just twist it onto itself, making this spiral shape. And there we have it. So this goes back into the fridge, and I'm just gonna repeat that until I've done all the 8 pieces of dough. So with parchment paper, you're gonna oil 2 pieces, just on one side. And then you're going to place the dough oiled onto the oiled side. And these are not gonna be perfectly round. They're gonna have more of that spiral shape. So you just wanna get something round-ish and about 8 inches across in diameter. And now the parchment is a really easy trick because you can take it directly from the parchment and put it into the skillet. I'm gonna take my parchment and just go like this. And then take it off. And you want to just let this sit until that first side is charred. It's like a pancake. It's going to cook most of the way through on the first side. And you can tell because, first of all, I'm seeing some bubbles. So all that gas inside the dough is puffing up and expanding. And you hear the sizzle because of the olive oil, so that's going to make it really crispy. I'll know that it's mostly cooked through because the surface of the dough is going to go from shiny to a little bit matte, just like a pancake. And that's how I'll know that I can flip it. And of course you can peek underneath. I'm going to flip this. I would say that's maybe been 2 minutes on the first side. Smells really good. Okay, so now I'm going to do, about a tablespoon of the zaatar oil mixture and just kind of spread it around all across. And then on the second side, since it's mostly cooked through, it'll be much faster. I'm gonna let that go. Okay, so this is my penultimate flatbread that I'm cooking here. And now I have my final flatbread here that I rolled out. The ones that I rolled out later had rested longer in the fridge, so they are holding their shape a little bit nicer. This is really what you want, this nice, even thickness. You can see that the feta has flattened, but then also poked through in places, which is good because those places are where it gets really crispy. Since I'm basically done, I'll take the baking sheet out of the oven because I don't need them to stay warm anymore. So we're gonna eat them. So here you can see all the flatbreads. They look so good. So I want you to look at the texture of the dough as I pull it apart. It has this great bready texture, and then you see the feta inside. Looks so good. I'm gonna give it a little dip in the eggplant. I'm glad I didn't put any more salt on top because I sort of forgot, like the feta is of course salty. So that's adding more salt. Like any really good dish, it's all about the balance of flavors and the number of different textures. So you have like soft and salty and little crispy edges and the little crunch from the sesame seeds and the zaatar, plus this like silky smooth, olive oily, bright lemony dip. You could grill these, by the way. You could do them directly on your grill, or you could put a pan on your grill. So if you're outside, you can be kind of socializing, and like this is so crowd pleasing. I really hope you try it. I am so excited. This is now lunch. And if you don't want to make any of this, at least try the eggplant dip because it is a perfect dip for your entire summer outdoor grilling season. So thank you for watching. We have more episodes of Dessert Person, and give it a try. And like and subscribe.